You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Round Table, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and the global elite's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
And good morning. This is Phil Stargell of the Abolitionist Round Table of Michigan. And we are on the air this morning, and again, I'm going to soldier on in the face of the fact that Del Marsh is not in today, and as you know, that Del Marsh has been undergoing some treatments for a condition relating to cancer. So we asked you to keep him in your thoughts and your prayers. And believe me, I'm not ashamed to ask people for prayer because the aftermath of the Florida incident, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but what I want to say here is that prayer certainly works. And I've told you before, and even had my youngest son pay a visit to me after I was out of the hospital with heart surgery. But my young son survived malignant melanoma and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 5. So I credit my former mother-in-law and her group for praying that boy back into health, because he was a very, very sick young man. And today he's a 46-year-old gentleman with 2 children of his own. So I tell you, anytime somebody tells you that they don't want your thoughts in your prayers, you know, they just don't know what the grace of God is capable of. So, folks, again, if you would send your thoughts and prayers to Del Marsh, and if you can afford it, send in a contribution to Del Marsh at Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan. And relating to that fact, over the coming weeks, we will be talking more about that, because we're going to do some changes. Some changes have been made, and we are going to give you more updates on that as we go along. But for now, the Abolitionist Round Table of Michigan is on the air and will continue on the air. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about this morning was the fact that February was Black History Month, and I wanted to devote a little bit of time to that. Because earlier in the month, in February is a short month, so earlier in the month, the Florida incident was the primary topic of this program, and I wanted to get to a little bit of Black history But that incident keeps interfering with the agenda because it is a very important situation here, because it's not just the fact that it was just a terrible incident, and it was something that keeps occurring, and every time it occurs, the thought always goes not to the people that have caused this, but to the people that are innocent of any wrongdoing, and that thought goes to taking the rights of those innocent people because of some person that decides that they are angry, or they are they are mentally ill, or whatever the problem is. These incidents keep happening. So what do? We automatically blame the innocent people and decide that you want to take away their right to protect themselves from some idiot just like did what he did, because he is able to go into a school and become the king of the hill because he has a very decided advantage over people, because we have deliberately made this place the unsafest place in the whole city. And we talk about we want our children to be safe when they go to school. Well, you can see what that attitude does when you talk about this is a gun-free zone and no guns allowed, and you put these signs up and tell everybody that if you want to be an idiot, if you want to be the king of the hill for a couple of minutes, this is the place. And we're not even going to blame you after you do it. We're going to blame the innocent people that had nothing to do with it, had no interest in doing anything like that. And yet and still, they get the blame and ultimately the punishment in not just the idea of taking away their right to defend themselves, but to make them the scourge of the earth because they want to protect that right. They go out and just abuse the NRA and abuse people that own guns and may at one point or some point in their life want to defend, will need to defend themselves, and maybe they won't be able to act in a way that they can defend themselves. This is what this nonsense, this madness is about these gun-free zones. They give you a sense that you're superior because you want to let everybody know that you don't condone violence. Well, there are sometimes there needs to be violence in order to keep order. And the only way you can stop, and this is a cliche and I understand it, but the only way you can stop a bad guy with a gun is have a good guy with a gun do it. And the bad part about it, the sad part about it is when that good guy confronts that bad guy, the bad guy takes the easy way out and kills himself. But he's done so much harm in the meantime that now public opinion wants to say that we don't need these type of this, and we don't need, what does anybody need with that? Well, I can tell you what, if somebody had one of the guns that we say we don't need in that school, I guarantee you that it wouldn't be 17 deaths, may not have been any. So, folks, let's not lose sight of what's going on here. The whole thing is about making sure that a certain group of people are in power and continue in power for the next 40, 50 years or 200 years or whatever it is that their goal that they set. And if they take away your right to defend yourself, believe me, you will be sheep and not capable of defending yourself, just like those people that were in Parkland. This is something that I just happened to see this morning, and I'm gonna say something about it. Tucker Carlson said something last night about the fact that President Trump said that police should have taken guns from the Florida shooter, whether they had the right to or not. And I know a lot of people that absolutely despises the president. We're glad to hear that. But I have to side with Tucker Carlson when he said that, you don't just go around taking people's rights, and without due process. And we shouldn't forget that. That is exactly the attitude that the Democrats take about anything that they don't like. They would just as soon trample over your rights as anything, and then try to tell you that the reason why they do it is because they can't tolerate people like Donald Trump. But they agree with what he's saying here. But when he said, well, let's do something with birth control, let's do something with abortion. Well, those same people come about and call him a dictator and everything else. So you gotta, the president has to be careful about how he opens the door to these Democrats, because they will take every opportunity to make him look like to be some kind of a ogre, some kind of a troll under the bridge. And this is to be expected, and this is why you see a story that should have been pushed to the back now continually at the front of the news. And I can't get to a few things I want to talk about because I'm talking about this shooting in Florida. The president is fully capable of defending himself, but I think he allowed himself to be lulled into an unforced error, like in tennis. I mean, he's made a blunder here that so many people in the Republican Party are willing to punish him for those kind of things. He's got to be very careful about this. So I'm just saying that that the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that whenever these things happen, the Democrats are going to try to make it out to be just what Rahm Emanuel said a couple of years ago about never allowing a crisis to go unused. I mean, this guy is this is the kind of thing that the Democrats jump on, and you got to be very careful of the path that you take, because they take advantage of every unforced error. So the first thing I want to do is, well, you know what, I was going to go to the agenda, but I want to make one other point about the Florida thing. There is this guy that did the shooting down there. I'm not going to certainly not going to give his name, but this guy is the beneficiary of some things that go what I call some of the landmines left behind by the other president that just left out of the office a year ago, President Obama. This is when this shooter down in Florida, when you look at his record, you find that he has been constantly in trouble and constantly in this and constantly in that. And this, what happened here, this is what caused President Trump to turn around and say something like take away his guns regardless of whether they had the right to or not, because there was a program set down by the president preceding President Trump. And that was that they had this idea that they needed to allow kids to continue with their schooling and continue in the setting of a school because they wanted to interrupt the pipeline from high school to the prison cells. So they wanted to give kids all of the hope and the chance to, if they made an error, that they didn't want to tarnish their record and to let them continue with their education. And this might be one of those things where they slip through the cracks in the program. And so this is why I say that this is one of the landmines that was left by the previous administration. And one of the other landmines that he left was the bump stock. The bump stock. It was under the Obama administration that the bump stock was allowed to be manufactured, okayed for manufacture and put on the market under his administration. I say that was a landmine because it exploded after it was set, and President Obama was gone on to other things, and it exploded under the Trump administration. And the same thing with the Fast and Furious thing. It was to discredit ownership of guns, Fast and Furious, and they allowed those guns to be put across the border into Mexico, and you had almost a civil war going on down there with the results of the weapons that were allowed to be transferred down there. Again, another landmine, because the Obama administration did not have to do that. It was a thing that cost Eric Holder his job as Attorney General, because they could not defend what they did. But he was allowed to resign because he wouldn't cooperate with the Congress, and they put out a subpoena. And President Obama included Eric Holder under the banner of executive privilege, but he had to resign his post. Now he's rumbling about making a run for presidency. And I say this, if people don't realize how bad some of the legislation and some of the executive orders that were passed down by the Obama administration, and they're exploding under the Trump administration. It's some things that we have to look at and quit excusing the previous administration and have them held accountable for some of the landmines that they left and are exploding today, and there are going to be more that will come to view as this second year of the Trump administration begins its begins to go down through the ensuing months. So what I tell you is, what we've got to do is we got to be realistic, and we got to start holding the Democrats responsible for taking advantage of every situation that is a tragedy, and stop playing on the sympathies of people, and hold them accountable and say, look, we just like they were saying things like, we don't want your thoughts and prayers. We need to tell the people that this sympathy and this making people victims, which is the stock and trade of the Democrat Party, has to come to an end. We have to hold people responsible. And we can take a quick call from line 1. We're going to Ed from Ypsilanti. Go ahead, Ed. How are you this morning?
Hey, Phil, I'm fine. Good to hear you.
Thank you.
Not to take away from your major point of the Obama administration leaving landmines, the bump stock issue, that so surprised me when a highly politicized, administration like this, didn't take advantage of being able to shut down the production of bump stocks.
Yeah.
I don't own a bump stock. I can't afford to feed a bump stock.
Yeah.
Don't really care about a bump stock, except that technically a bump stock, if you start legislating against a bump stock, that's a slippery slope.
Yes,
because
it is.
It's still the definition of one trigger pull, one thing go bang.
Yeah.
So.
Well, see, the thing about it, that's why I termed it a landmine, because, the implications are so broad that if you want to stop this, then if you do it in the correct manner, then you open it up to allow Democrats to bring in all kind of nonsense. And that's where...
Oh, I see. I misinterpreted what you meant. I thought you meant that the landmine was that by him letting the bump stock be manufactured, then you have the guy in the casino in Las Vegas, shooting hundreds of people.
Well, yeah.
That's what I thought you meant.
But the thing is that you know, and I know, that if this bump stock principle has been around quite a while, and
yeah,
and the thing about it is it wasn't approved for manufacture and sale, and so it wasn't classified as one thing or another. But once it got the approval of the government through the classifying process, and all of that, and got a legal designation. Now, in order to get rid of it, you have to go through Congress, which allows Congress and the Democrats to throw a whole bunch of other stuff in there to get rid of it. Because who is going, in their right mind, is going to recommend the use? I mean, what's the purpose of a bump stock? But once it's legal, now you are taking a chance on allowing this thing. This is why people don't want to go through the amendment process. Okay, thanks a lot for your call this morning, Ed.
Talk to you later.
And great point. And folks, if you'd like to join the conversation, the number is 734-822-1600. And we're going to go to some messages, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Round Table with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Hello, I'm Milt, and this is Logically Speaking Uncensored. The Democrat Party, demonic masters of racism and shameless hypocrisy. People without scruples are incapable of having a moral consciousness of shame. This axiom fit the Democrat Party perfectly because their pigmentation politics make them masters of racism. To illustrate this axiom, on Monday, 13 January 2018, people across the nation celebrated the life and civil rights achievements of Reverend Martin Luther King. In the forefront of the celebrations with pious words of praise was the ruling hypocrites of the Democrat Party. Unless you know the Democrat Party racist history, it's easy to believe that their praises of Reverend King, even as white supremacist advocates, were sincere and that they supported civil rights for blacks. However, in reality, they hated Reverend King and everything he stood for. But today, they shamelessly perpetuate the myth that they loved him. Reverend King, in his historic speech, I Have a Dream, said people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But preceding the date of Reverend King's celebration, President Trump articulated the need for a merit-based immigration policy. Allegedly, in his rhetoric, he mentioned the lack of merit from such defecation nations as Haiti, El Salvador, and places in Africa. Being the hypocrites that they are, the Democrat Party negated Reverend King's character proclamations by giving political assassin Dick Durbin the task of using skin color to condemn President Trump as a racist. Durbin's racism accusation revealed the shameless hypocrisy of the Democrat Party because if President Trump was a racist, which he is not, his racist indoctrination would be the product of the Democrat Party, who for hundreds of years before President Trump or his parents were born, was in the business of teaching racist politics, denigrating blacks and putting slaves in chains. Therefore, the Democrat Party is responsible for racism in America. The Democrat Party supports illegal immigration and shamelessly disregard and violate constitutional laws. The Democrat Party believes it's incorrect to prohibit abortions and female genital mutilations while hypocritically claiming they are for life and the protectors of girls. Muslims call America Big Satan, and the Democrat Party say promoting Christianity and rejection of communism, fascism, and the welfare state make the United States a hellhole. If true, why would people living in a paradise come to America unless they have the character flaws of insanity? With the insanity of Maxine Dirty Water, who calls President Trump scum and despicable, and Hillary Clinton, who called Americans deplorable, and President Ali Obama, who called Americans mongrels, the nation has enough insanity. And whatever President Trump said regarding certain places and nations, it's insignificant compared to the evil expressions of hate from Democrat Party demonic masters of racism and shameless hypocrisy. I am Milt, logically speaking, uncensored, saying, think about it.
Again, we want to thank Milt Harris for just another great commentary, and it's appropriate. what I was saying about a landmine is it has to do with the Obama era. It's called the discipline guidelines and restorative justice and things like that. And I'm going to give you a quick example. This article was in the on the internet a couple of days ago, and it says lenient school discipline policies implemented by the Obama administration allowed the Parkland, Florida school shooter to maintain a clean record that allowed him to purchase the gun he used to kill 17 people. A report by Real Clear Investigations said. Now, to go on, it says restorative justice. The lenient discipline policy stemmed from an effort to reduce overall numbers of racial disparities in school to prison pipelines by using less severe punishments and limiting law enforcement involvement in school incidents, rather than by working to limit the number of crimes committed at schools through zero tolerance policies. Okay, in Brown County, particularly in Broward County, where last month's shooting took place, Superintendent Robert Runcie and Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel signed a collaborative agreement on school discipline in October 2016, which listed misdemeanors that could not be reported to police and outlined steps that police must exhaust before arresting a student. So this is the thing that allows this young person to purchase a gun after some rather serious incidents, and nobody puts him on record, and nobody held him responsible until he did the unthinkable. And so we have, when suggestions are made to arm the teachers, what do you get? You got nobody wants armed police and armed teachers in the schools. They already rejected having armed policemen in the schools already, because they rejected, in this school, they rejected the idea that that they would have metal detectors at the entrances. They rejected that. So what they're telling you is that they want to be in a school where the police are not involved actively. That tells you that right there. And so when something does happen, nobody's around to protect the hen house. And all of the chickens and all of the eggs are at the exposure of an idiot with a gun instead of a good guy with a gun. This is nonsense. And now they want to come and get at you and me, who have absolutely nothing to do with this and probably would never even think of using a gun unless it was in a life and death defense of our loved ones or ourself. And boy, I'm telling you, we have got to get the people that believe in the principle of being able to protect themselves, because these landmines are all over the place. And I'm going to just give you just a little bit more of this. And this is what, before arresting a student for misbehavior or misdemeanor at school, officers are required to consult with the school principal, consider surrounding circumstances. I don't know what that has to do with it. Issue a warning, talk to parents or guardians. Consider non-arrest alternatives. Well, okay, so now this guy is, the police have been called to his house at least 20 times for him and close to 50 times for the rest of the family. And nobody puts a warning up and tells the people that are selling guns that this guy is an idiot and he has a short fuse. Man, I'm telling you, and yet and still, and people are saying, well, if you don't advocate confiscating other people's guns, innocent people's guns, then you are an idiot. That's the other point that I was making about what they do to people that are advocates of being able to protect your rights. They make you out to be the idiot. And all along, to me, it seems that the people that are making the rules in this particular case are the real, true idiots. And we have got to stand up. And like I said, folks, I'm renewing my National Rifle Association membership, and I got a friend of mine that called me yesterday and said when I renew mine, he's going to renew his. Let him know. And so I'm giving you all out there. If you haven't joined the National Rifle Association or paid your last year's membership up, then by all means call me and let's get together and show the National Rifle Association that we appreciate them carrying the battle. And let's all give them, say, let's try to get 25 or 30 of us together and sign up and tell the National Rifle Association to keep doing what they're doing and don't back down from these wannabe idiots, because they are definitely idiots when they come to telling you that you should not be able to defend yourself from the real true idiots. Okay, we're going to go to the lines. We're going to go to Joe from Wyandotte on line 1. Good morning, Joe. Good to see you up early this morning.
Yeah, I'm up. Yeah, I actually been up all night, but it's a long story. But
you better get you one of them pillows they talk about.
Yeah. I got a sleep number bed. Yeah, I need one of those fancy pillows to go with it, I guess. Huh? Yeah. But I was calling about bump stocks, but frankly, what you were just talking about is way more important to expound upon. Liberals always do this. Mm-hmm. They don't like something, they come up with some moronic policy change to make a cosmetic change, rather than examine why more black kids are being disciplined and get to the root issue and deal with the root causes. No, they make a dumb policy so they can falsify the statistics and then run around and say they fixed it because the statistics are going down. Yeah. Well, yeah, because they may as well just do what NOAA does with the climate change issue and just blatantly change the numbers arbitrarily.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing about it. And then if you disagree with that, they come at you from every corner, from the media to the Hollywood idiots out in Hollywood, to the professors in these schools and these high school teachers that are teaching these kids to be the idiots that they are. And there's no other way to put it, but you're going to have to put this idea that they can come into a school and shoot up everybody, and this is not being what you and me were taught when we went through the school.
Yeah,
And
instead of trying to deal with and head off these young hoodlums from becoming full-on criminals, they're like ostriches and just bury their head in the sand.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between conservatives and liberals are we as conservatives want an actual solution to a problem.
Exactly right. Exactly
And the
right. Democrats
just want to gloss it over.
Yeah. Well, they want to blame something or somebody for all of the problems, and I tell you, the previous administration cornered the market on blaming everything else except what the real problem was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Joe. Thanks a lot. I got your email, and I'll be in touch.
All right. Take care, my friend.
All righty.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to go to line number 3 from Gary from Hazel Park. Good morning, Gary.
Hey, Phil. How you doing, brother?
Oh, man. Some days, I can tell you, I can get really worked up.
That's right. You got every reason to be worked up because the actual pain and suffering caused by Imam Obama is incalculable. You can't add it all up because, you know, his open border policies that allowed thousands of foreign nationals to sweep across our borders, bringing drugs and, you know, MS-13 and the human trafficking, you know, is a promotion of the homosexuality and getting rid of don't ask, don't tell and imposing same-sex marriage on us, you know. Not pursuing ISIS with the full force of the military and pulling out of Iraq without a plan, allowing Hezbollah to traffic drugs, you know. And then there's Fast and Furious, of course. All these people, in all of these places, people died. Lots of people died. And now this problem with this Promise program that has allowed thousands and thousands of kids, young people, become, like the last caller just said, criminals instead of hoodlums. And it's swept across our whole country. The teachers are getting beat up and hurt and sent to hospitals. I read that same article you were reading, and it's a real problem across our country. The kids are taking over the schools, and they're not afraid of anybody because of this program. They know they can break the law. They know they can do stupid stuff, and they're not punished for it. And they know it.
And that spirit that you talk about is shown at the way that these kids stormed up to the State House and demanded what they want, and that is to punish somebody that had absolutely nothing to do with this, instead of demanding that the school eliminate that problem. The best way to eliminate that problem is get some security around these kids. If you want to save school, you better get some security in there.
Right, and then you see the illegal aliens going actually to the Capitol building, sitting in the rotunda, and screaming at us. Now, those people should have been rounded up right there and sent home, right there.
But you notice that instead of rounding them up, you get people like the mayor of Oakland warning the people that the law is on their way. So, you know, you better cool out, you know. Man, I tell you.
Yeah, we ought to be able to deport the mayor of Oakland if we could, you know.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
But she should be arrested.
Yes, she
for
should.
Obstruction of justice and probably 30 other things. You know?
What are they trying to do with President Trump? They're trying to arrest him for obstruction of justice.
True, based on some nonsense. Because you know how it is, though. So you know, it's been 100 years that they've been trying to change our society. And they're not going to give up because we're winning at this point in time. We're only winning for a short period of time.
Yeah, we're winning a battle here and a battle there.
Right. So we just got to keep fighting and, carry on.
Well, did you join the NRA this year, or are you a lifetime member?
I have not joined, and I had planned to for several years, but it looks like this is the year to do it.
Well, why don't we start a little thing, and we'll do it from Wham Radio. And then many people that haven't signed up, let's do something here from the Abolitionist Round Table and tell the National Rifle Association that we appreciate their efforts.
All right, Phil, I'm on board with you.
Okay, we'll get that. We'll work on that in a little bit and see can we get this thing, you know, to get some numbers here.
All right.
All right. Thanks for your call this morning. And we are going to go to line number 1, and this is Mark from Waterloo Township. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Phil. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing terrific. A little worked out.
I've been listening to your show for a while, and then for a year I couldn't hear it, and my Saturday mornings were empty because I had to sleep while your show was on.
Oh, my goodness. Thanks a lot for getting back with us. It was great to have you back.
Regarding the shooting in Parkland, Florida, and President Trump's statement, I can't, say it, of course, but maybe he was misquoted or, misstated what he intended. And I was thinking of something like this when they're saying, due process. If you are a drunken driver, you are taken by the police to an emergency department, and they have to wait there until they get a facsimile court order to draw your blood. They just can't draw it on their own volition.
Right.
Couldn't this be done with these episodes where the police go and there's a suspected problem? With modern technology, why could they not stay on the site of a concern until they got a court order from a judge to take weapons that they think, because they take drunken drivers off the road because they perceive a threat to the public.
Exactly
why
right.
Why could they not do the same thing with perceived people with guns that they perceive to be a psychological threat to the community? Because why could not a court order go straight to their patrol car from a request to a judge? Because judges are on call 24/7 to receive these requests from the police for legal blood draws.
Yeah, I agree, but I believe probably in this case, they were the local police were under this order.
True. You're quite correct. They were under these restrictions.
Yeah.
But the Second Amendment folk who are all up in arms about the government will start seizing weapons. Why could this not be a compromise between the two? Where they speak of, due justice.
I think I could go for that compromise. I don't like the idea that some of the compromises that are being, swung out there are a little bit more than I would be willing to do. But sometimes you're in a position where the voters are in an uproar on the wrong side of an issue. And the politicians have to swing with that wave, It's not going to do them any good. I don't know why they do it, but they do. So
yeah, it's just when I heard that all I could think of is the type of person brought into the ER and have the same kind of reversal to the police going into a home where there's a perceived threat to the community.
Well, see, the thing about it is that goes to the individual. What the opposition is proposing is going to the masses. They want to take away rights, and that's where I'm really because when you talk about doing what you're talking about doing, you're taking away the privilege, of the right. You see, there's a right and a privilege. It's just like driving. I mean, but driving is a privilege all the way, whereas guns are a right. So we want the police to be as very diligent about messing with that right as we can possibly get.
It's a very tight tightrope to walk.
Yes, it is. Thanks for your call, and
thank you, Phil.
Keep listening, and we're going to talk more about doing something with the NRA to let them know that we're out here supporting them. Okay, folks, we are at the end of the show, and if you get a chance, remember Del Marsh and Post Office Box 135, and we will see you next week. The Abolitionist Round Table invites the Wham Talk 1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and tell a friend.